Hello, hello everyone. Hello once again. Oh, hang on. We added you. What's going on here? Why aren't you... Ah, there we go. That should be working now. Excellent. Uh, Thank you. Thank you very much, Topo, for the follow. I'm glad to see you. Welcome in, welcome in. I hope you've been well, and I hope everyone else has been quite well as well. Uh, Friday, so a nice time to finally relax a little. Hopefully, I know some people work over the weekends and it may not be their time to relax, but for most of us, I imagine it is. I hope everyone who is a streamer is getting time to put in those streaming hours. I had a nice day today. Nice easy day at work. It was kind of a very repetitive job, so I was able to just roll on through. Nothing too demanding. You know, I was just listening to music all day and playing stuff or listening to podcasts, just singing along to myself while typing at the keyboard and doing stuff. But it was fine. Everything was working out perfectly as well. There was no like issues either, so it was like, excellent. I'm not gonna have to go to anyone and be like, hey, there's something wrong here. What do we do about it? It's always good. And welcome in, Teal. Thank you very much for the head pat. I'm gonna have to ask someone how to do like redeems and stuff. I don't know a whole lot of stuff. I'm gonna need someone to give me like a streamer 101 on like some of the most basic things that I should probably know about. Like really simple redeems, like a head pat redeem that can make my that can like ruffle my head. That would be good. Um, but other than that, I thankfully have the book, but about 5 minutes before I started the stream, I oh, that reminds me, I should probably tweet out that I'm live now. I always forget to do something. I'm sure I've forgotten to do something else as well. But I couldn't find my book, and I was in a panic, and I was so confused because when I finish reading, I always just like put it down by the by either my computer or like on the floor next to me or next to my computer, kind of close to the wall so that like I can I'm not gonna trip over it. I'm not gonna get killed by a book yet. But I couldn't find it, and I was looking everywhere for it. I was tearing up my bed in case like I had been looking at it for some reason, even though I was pretty sure I hadn't. Book on the floor. Yeah, I just like it's not really on the floor. Like I have a pile of copies and stuff that are like from other stuff that I just have them up against the wall because I always go for them. Although I am getting a desk soon. I'm getting a new desk, and a new bookshelf, and I'm gonna have loads of more room for stuff. So that's gonna be good. But yeah, yeah. It's just easier. I don't know, for me anyway. Like I can sit down at my desk and like just lean over, pick up the thing that I want, and get to work or start reading whatever it is. But I was so panicked. I was looking around everywhere. It turned out it was on my like window shelf, but because I had the blind down, I couldn't see it. And I was so panicked. I was so confused because I wouldn't have taken it out of the house. I was like checking the kitchen, I was checking the bathroom, I was checking the front room. I was like, what is going on? Why are you eyeing me? Why is that like an eyeing? What, what did I do? Was it the bathroom thing? You don't take books into the bathroom? I don't know, man. Like most people take their phones and they're on their phones when on the bathroom. I know a lot of you. Oh, I hope my volume is okay. Cause who's the author? That's nasty. No, I know so many people who like I've even talked to people about this before who are like they're on their phones for so long that they go to stand up and they like fall over. But welcome in, Impeach Claire. Thank you for the first time chat. The author is a man by the name of Edward Fesser. He is a philosopher who wrote a beginner's guide on the philosophy of mind. Now he is a little, I would say, polemical in the sense that he doesn't, excuse me, he makes it quite clear which side of things he lands on. And for those of you who are joining for the ASMR side of things, I usually do like kind of just a little bit of just chatting at the beginning before we get into anything kind of relaxing. And if my audio is, because I'm still trying to figure out this new audio interface, so if there's anything I can do to improve it, if it's a little too loud or a little too quiet or anything, just say. Um, but he is a little bit polemical. But I find this book to be very good for giving a broad overview on things. And I think his general discussions and how he leads you through the arguments, and it's quite simple language. I've read some books before that they're painful to read. They can be hugely interesting, but just trying to follow like a page or two, it can be like, oh, it makes the brain hurty. But we're a couple chapters in it. We're actually going to be getting into materialism, chapter 3 today. So I don't know if we'd finish it or anything, but we will make a decent dent, I suppose. But talking about like struggling to find my book, that's nasty. Phone or book, yuck. I suppose I can see how why, yeah, I do agree, but I still do it. Chapter 3, yeah, you motherfucker. Yes, yes. Irish people are well known for being unable to say the word tree, or three, as it is supposedly correctly pronounced. But I disagree. You're wrong. Is it the Irish who can't pronounce the word tree? No, the rest of the world is wrong. Excuse me, had to take a drink. Don't worry, I know my parents have a strong accent. I just never picked it up. Oh, are you Irish yourself, Teal, or do you? Is it another accent, perhaps? But that's cool. That's very very cool. Um, Yo, based we have another Irish person in here. I'm not alone anymore. um, but yeah, even people who move to America, you have them come back sometimes, and they lose the accent, or maybe to Australia. Although it's not as common in Australia. Like it's not that they'll lose the accent, but it'll be very much diluted, and it's very funny to take the piss out of them. Welcome in, hello Nex, how are you? Nex Teacup. Yo, it's my man, Rua Ua. Yeah, that's pretty much. I should have that as an automatic thing that can pop up whenever someone asks how to pronounce a name, just Rua Ua, and that I think that pretty much is a good description of it. I usually go like Roo, like kangaroo, like Roo, and then ah. That's how I explain it. Oh, you can add it in OBS and do the hotkey or so. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I never thought of that. But then I'll have to remember hotkeys. Ah. Oh, that's how you say it. Rua ua quilta. I feel like that's going to be a common thing for a long, long time. Anyone who ever comes in is going to be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? What? How do you even say this name? That's not a normal name." Was I? What did I want? Oh yeah, I was talking with. Well, I wasn't talking with, but I was tweeting at. I read a tweet by it, and I responded to Olga Okami, who is a really really cool VTuber, and you guys should definitely check her out. She is fantastic. I really enjoy watching her streams whenever I can catch them. But she was talking about how uh, something got caught in her contact lens and it was really hurting, and then I was like in response to having poor eyesight that it sounded a bit like a skill issue personally. But she said that because her eyesight so close was so bad that she was very careful with like putting things down and always putting things in the same place, which I guess is like you always remember where you put the certain object. And I was like, you're probably better at remembering where things are than mine. And welcome in, clever. Because I am a very forgetful person. I'm a very forgetful person. Ooh, you're at a parade, and you're listening to me talk. There's probably like there's probably like bands and other cool fun stuff playing, clever, and you're listening to me. You know what? I'll take it. I'll take that. That's a win for me personally. Introduce me to people at the parade. Tell them I said hi. Nah, local crowd. nice. Oh, yay, that's so nice. Although that's very early. I hope you guys have another parade in like a month's time when it is closer to the date. Oh yeah, we're getting into the time now. It's starting to get reasonable for there to be like Christmas music and stuff playing, I suppose. Although I do love when like at the start you're like, oh no, here it begins, Mariah, like all the songs. But then you start getting into the mood, and I love Christmas. It's probably one of you know it's the most wonderful time of the year. I started way too low to go, and I couldn't go any lower. Well, I could sing lower, I think, but I kind of got caught a little. But that's nice. I hope you enjoy yourself, Clever. I know. Places turned on a couple of lights, so that's nice. Cute little boxy emote. But yeah, I imagine Olga probably is much better at remembering where she places stuff than I imagine she probably doesn't lose things as often as I would, because I'm so bad. I definitely take after people in my family. Although, speaking of contact lenses, actually, before I get into the book, there's a great story of someone of my family who was a boxer and was a very good boxer, but he had terrible eyesight. He's worn glasses all his life, and he couldn't really see out of them. And not that he could obviously see with the glasses, but you can't wear glasses in boxing, and even contact lenses are kind of like a little bit iffy. Actually, I don't even think I think they might not even allow you to wear contact lenses, but I'm not too sure. I'm sure there's update different rule sets, but he had to go get an eye test, and like he couldn't pass it. Like, but what he would always do, he'd go to the same doctor, and he either memorized. He would like once the doctor stepped away for a moment, and he had a chance. He got really close to the eye test thing, and he memorized it. And every time he had to get his eyes checked, he went back to that doctor because he never changed his thing. Um, he never changed it, and you don't even need to score that well on it. You only need to get down like 3 or 4 lines, I think. But he was a good boxer as well. So fair play to him. He gamed the system a little bit. Quite a few army folks are here for it. That's nice. I mean, as long as you can see the blurry blob of the person, you can hit him. Exactly, exactly. And fuck me, could he hit them? I only ever saw him after he finished up, but dear God, could he punch hard? He was a southpaw like myself. He was a southpaw like myself. So that means left-handed for those of you who don't know. So when you and welcome in. What was that? Oh God, is it Golem Pear? Or oh no, wait, that's an I. Gwil Gwillem Gwillem Pear, maybe. Gwillemp Gillo Gwillemp Air. Gwillemp Air ear. I don't know. Help me. Now I'm having struggle. I don't know where the first word ends and where the next begins. But it was a sneaky thing that he certainly did. But welcome in, welcome in. Thank you for the first time chat. I think I'm gonna get into a little bit of reading. I just I just realized on Twitter, and if you guys haven't, go follow me on Twitter. Uh, I need to get a bot that automatically like shills me every like 10 minutes. But I just realized I just posted my link. I didn't even say like live now on it. I think I just posted the link in a retweet. I'm so dumb. That's sort of like my friend. She has wrist issues, but she does esports, so she basically tricked her doctor based trick doctors. Don't actually tell them your issues. Game the system. Guys, don't do that. It's not a good thing. Oh God, vibrations. Ghostbusters cartoon. Nice, nice. That's fun. That's fun. I'm sure there's a lot of really fun stuff. Depending on wherever you are, Clever, it might be like a really big city and there's a ton of like crazy stuff, or it might be like a little. I love like going to little towns in Ireland, because they'll often have like local parades, and it'll be like a bunch of farmers, and there'll be guys like pushing cows along, or like there'll be tractors and the local lads from down the pub on the back of like a pickup truck. Oh. But I think I will get into reading a little. But yeah, I think I will get into reading a little bit. 28k people, I think 11 square miles. Yeah, that's nice. That's a decent enough size. Pretty. I imagine like that would be like a small town here in Ireland, I suppose. Yeah. Not even a small town. That would probably be decent enough. Yeah, it would actually be. Yeah, we consider that like a town, not a city, but a town. Um, while in America, that's like a village. That's like a village to Americans. It's like 28,000 people. That's tiny. Listen, we have like 4 million people. But Clever, you have to like, if there's like a screen, we used to have 40k at our peak. Oh, it's been falling. That's not good. I assume probably people moving to the big cities, New York, California, wherever. But be careful not to dox yourself, Clever. If you care about that. um, just I'll just say. But what did I have in mind there? Might be the old people dying. Ugh, birth rate, bros. It's so low these days. Listen, listen. You have to make more children. Well, no. It's, you know what, I'm not going to get into that conversation. I was about to start talking about like the economic system and perpetual growth and the issues around that, and the need to have but like, could you have a declining economy or a steady state economy? See you, space cowboy. That shooting star in the background is Abe, watching over all of us, making sure we all do the deed. Ugh. Oh no, no, I'm in like a fit of giddy laughter. I'm in a little bit of a giddy mood now. I feel like my okay, no. I was gonna say that my mic sounds quite low, so I just had to listen to it on the monitor. But it seems okay. It's like down in the 25s. I usually would want it up around 20. But I don't want to push up my gain, because last time I did that it didn't go too well. It got way too loud for some reason. And I haven't done any proper tests. He became more powerful. He became more powerful than you could ever imagine. Excuse me. Oh, hand button, if you're still here, I got a can of Coca-Cola. No sugar, zero. Coca-Cola zero, not actual Coke. Please be more healthy. Hand button. I know Coca-Cola zero probably isn't very healthy for me, and it's probably going to give me like a bunch of diseases later on when they find out that it causes various different ailments. But you know, it's probably a little bit better than all the sugar. But I think we will begin. You could probably tell that I was going to get into it. I think we'll begin our reading. I just hope my voice doesn't, or not my voice, but my throat doesn't cause me to keep coughing. Because that would be quite frustrating. Let me check something. No, you did not. Laughs a lot. Welcome in, welcome in. Oh, laughs a lot actually. Uh, what was I gonna say? You no. If what was I thinking? For some reason, I thought I had something to say, but oh, I was probably just gonna say that if the audio is okay, because you were here and you were like a active person in chat, so I jumped on you to answer me. Now you will answer me. You will be active in my chat. Um, because I got a new interface, but the audio is a little bit low. Hell yeah. Okay, excellent, excellent. Yeah, that's how you guys keep an active chat. You know, you don't you directly call people out. I'm gonna start going through my viewer list and specifically calling out people who do not interact. That's how you make friends, and that's how you make lifelong viewers. You actively bully those people who are here to support you into being active. Thank you, third PT, for the hydrate redeem. Welcome in, third PT. And I would like to congratulate third PT as well on his recently hitting affiliate. Parade over. That was a very quick parade, clever. But congrats, third PT. He's a little VTuber himself, and he's doing pretty well, it seems. He's made some really great art. You guys should go check him out and should go follow him. Wait, I can do. How do you do a shout out again? Can't I go? Uh. Is it that? Wait, hang on. You know what? You guys, go follow him. How do I? Is it SO or shout out? I think it's this. Oh my god, look, it worked! Yes, let's go! Welcome in Sterling as well. Name pronunciation. My name is Ruadh. Either worked. Okay, I was assuming that would be the case, but I didn't want to do it and look like a dummy. Even though I did look like a dummy because I didn't know how to do it in the first place. There's so many things that I don't do until I need to do them, and then I realize I don't know how to do it, and I'm like, oh wait, no, fuck. But anyway, I think now is a good time to get into the book reading. I've been live for about 30 minutes, talking for about 25 of it, and I haven't even read a single book or single word. So now, figuring it on the go is the best part. You need people. You need people to be like, Daya had to walk me through how to give people back their points that they redeemed. And he was like, Rua, please, it's this easy. And I was like, I don't understand. Daya, help me. But I think it's time to begin. Shut up, Teal. I don't know. Listen, the only time I really need to look through my stream elements, or not my stream elements, my settings, because like I don't do that. Because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know you could even do it. I never had a reason to do it or to request such a thing. It's probably gone by now. It might not be. I'll check later if I can refund you. But I think now we will begin, and I'm not going to react to chat for a little bit. Chapter 3. Materialism. Although Cartesian dualism is today a minority view in the philosophy of mind, this should not blind us to the enormous influence Descartes has had on contemporary thinking about the mind-body problem, and particularly on materialism. I say this not only because materialists are explicitly guided by an animus against Descartes' dualistic metaphysics, but also, just as significantly, because they are at least implicitly guided by a commitment to certain other, distinctly Cartesian assumptions. Descartes believed that the world consisted of two kinds of substances, basic kinds of substances, thinking substance and extended substance, or the res cogitans and the res extensa. The modern materialist rejects the former but endorses the latter. Descartes was, it is thought, at least half right. His res cogitans is, by the materialist reckoning, a fiction, but his res extensa most assuredly is not. Indeed, it constitutes the whole of what a human being is. To be sure, Descartes' concept of matter as essentially extended cannot be maintained without qualification given developments in modern physics, which holds that certain fundamental physical particles are best conceived of on the model of unextended metaphysical or mathematical points. Nevertheless, his notion that the physical world constitutes a vast machine, with material objects, including the human body, being but smaller machines operating within it, has come to dominate the thinking of modern philosophers and scientists alike. It has become a hallmark of intellectual life in the post Cartesian period that understanding something is thought paradigmatically to involve taking it apart and seeing how it works, the way one would understand any mechanism. A physical thing on this model is like a clock, the operation of which can be grasped by determining how each part interacts mechanically so as to generate the behavior of the whole. Nowadays, this approach to an inquiry may seem to be just obviously correct, the epitome of thinking scientifically. Yet, as we will see later on, it constituted a dramatic departure, both scientifically and, more significantly for our purposes, metaphysically, from the assumptions that prevailed in most ancient and medieval thought. A departure that, in many respects, can be said to have created the mind-body problem as we know it today. That problem is thus as much an artifact of the points on which materialists and dualists agree as of those on which they do not. We will in due course be examining more carefully the nature and the ultimate plausibility of this approach to understanding the material world, shared by Cartesian dualists and materialists alike. The question at hand is whether, where the mind-body problem is concerned, that approach favors its materialist advocates over its dualist ones. So the type of idea that the professor here was giving to Descartes, and I can't say for certain because I haven't read much Descartes, is essentially mechanism. The concept that, you know, if you can know, if I push something, essentially physics, that's probably the best way to describe it. If we think about how mechanisms work, how he describes it like a clock, or, the things are connected in certain ways, and if something happens and this will happen exactly this, and if you know all the surrounding events, you can directly explain or predict what will happen because it's a mechanistic thing. There are some metaphysical and philosophical considerations with this, including things like free will, for example. But we will be getting into this later. Tables, chairs, rocks, and trees. It is certainly no mystery why the approach in question has come to seem obviously correct. Modern science has, to all appearances, been one long success story. A success made possible in large part because of its commitment to the mechanistic model of the world, the behavior and properties of the ordinary middle-sized objects of everyday experience, tables, chairs, rocks, trees, water, metal, as they burn, melt, freeze, reflect, light, exhibit magnetism, conduct electricity, have been explained in great detail via physical and chemical theories of extraordinary predictive power, whose application has made possible the breathtaking technologies of the modern world, technologies that would have seemed magical to earlier generations. These theories have revealed the existence of a micro level of physical reality, a realm of molecules, atoms, electrons, protons, quarks, etc., which our ancestors would have found equally marvelous, and they have also proved themselves applicable to, and revealed the unexpected vastness of, the macro level of the universe, solar systems, galaxies, galaxy clusters, and the very fabric of time and space. Most relevant to our present concerns, they have proved successful in explaining the operation of the human body and its various subsystems, opening the way to healing of diseases that have plagued humankind for millennia, the extension of longevity through medicine and the use of artificial organs, and even the assisted or artificial reproduction through laboratory means, in vitro fertilization and cloning of life itself. Hello, raiders. Welcome in. I should probably turn down the alerts again a little bit. I have to remember that like my raid signal is a horn. But welcome in, welcome in. Thank you very much, Navir, for the raid. Welcome in, Fonzie. Oh my god, guys, it's the Fonz. Hey, hey. That scared me. I'm sorry, guys. I'll turn it down to like, it's now going to be 25 decibels lower, supposedly. Damn, I'm playing Mountain Blade right now. Couldn't figure out what the fuck was happening. Hello, hello, rat raid, rat raid. Oh, Navir, are you a rat? Okay, rat though. I like rats. Rats are cool. Rats are fun. Oh no, did I scare everyone? No, you didn't scare everyone, Navir. I did. It was me being a dummy. Because I'm doing ASMR, so I had to talk a little softly. Well, not ASMR. I'm reading. I'm reading currently. But I I just did something silly. I should remember. I always forget stuff. Don't worry, don't worry. I was a dummy, but I think it's a good raid sound because it makes it feel like you guys are like coming in through the forest, and you sound your approach to let everyone know you come in, and then you come in, and we all like say hi. But I'd like to welcome in all the raiders. Thank you very much, Navir, or Naver. Is that how you pronounce your name? So we are literally raiding. Exactly, exactly. Don't steal my cattle. I will kill you all. Uh, what do we pillage? I don't know. You guys can go pillage like a surrounding village. Just don't take my cattle. They're very important. I know some of you might be looking to try and become a man, which is very important. So you have to go on your first cattle raid. Don't shoot. We're with that elf which has a bunch of rats with him, and they don't have the plague. I swear, it's okay. I like. Oh, see. Excuse me. I sorry. I have a slight cough. So you're an elf. Lovely. Well, I suppose I should probably introduce myself. My name is Ruadh Uaquilta. I'm a half-human, half Tuatha the Tuatha being the gods people of Ireland. Back during the mythological times. It's very lovely to meet all of you. What were you streaming, Nivir? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Navire. Something like that, I'm sure. Did it say? Not too sure if it said. But I hope. Yeah, it's okay. Okay. I have people struggle to pronounce my name all the time. It's a great way to open introductions, I find. I wonder, do you have that as well? You say hi and they struggle to pronounce it, and then you get to immediately. You like to hear different people pronouncing it differently. It's because it's NV. So I'm the same. I love hearing people pronounce it wrong. I always use it. I say hello in chat, and then they're like, Ruad, Ruadiv, Ruad. I don't know how to pronounce your name, man. And then I correct them, and then I get to chat away with them, and it's very nice. For those of you who are joining us, we are currently reading The Philosophy of Mind, a beginner's guide by Edward Fesser. We're just getting into a chapter on materialism. Oh man, I didn't even try when I told who we'll read. That's fair, that's fair. It's definitely an awkward name to pronounce, no doubt. But thank you so much. Hang on, let me do the thingy. This one. Yeah, look at that. I did the shout out thing. Guys, look at me. I did it again. I managed to do it. What? I hope that wasn't loud. I just went Irish fellow. That's probably a good way of doing it. Like he's Irish in some fashion. I can't pronounce his name. But I hope you guys had a lovely stream, and I hope those of you who are going to stick around will enjoy the reading. Whether you put me on in the background, you take an active listening, or you listen to me until you fall asleep, I certainly don't mind. It's very nice to meet you, Navir, and all your wonderful friends. And go give him a follow. Go check out his stuff. I'll be checking out him later. Thank you as well for the follow. Where were we? Ah, yes. It is no surprise, then, that many philosophers have taken the view that the human mind ought also to be explicable in terms of the same sort of mechanical account to which the rest of the universe has apparently yielded. This view is more or less what is meant by materialism, the theory that reality, or when the term is used specifically to denote a position in the philosophy of mind. The theory that reality, when the term is used specifically to denote a position in the philosophy of mind, at least human reality, consists of purely material or physical objects, processes, and properties, operating according to the same basic physical laws and thereby susceptible of explanation via physical science. There is, in short, no such thing as immaterial substance, or soul, or spirit, nor any aspect of human nature which, in principle, elude explanation in purely physical terms. The mind is, paradoxical as it may sound, entirely material. It is material, that is to say, if it exists at all. If it exists at all. And there are a few radical materialists who are of a mind to deny that it does. But more on them later. Materialism is also sometimes referred to as physicalism or naturalism, though these terms are occasionally used by philosophers to denote views which are intended to be distinguished from materialism. This confusion in terminology is, in a way, entirely appropriate for the materialistic thesis. This confusion in terminology is, in a way, entirely appropriate, for the materialist thesis is by no means as evident or clear-cut as it might at first appear. Modern physical science's success in explaining the tables, chairs, rocks, and trees of everyday experience is not the only source of materialism's intuitive appeal. There is also the fact that such ordinary physical objects seem to be paradigms of what counts as real in the first place. If we can see, hear, touch, and smell something, we know for sure, barring Cartesian evil spirits and dreams, that it exists. Conversely, our failure to provide observational evidence for something typically leads us to doubt its existence. But then it seems that we ought to be suspicious of any claim that something other than the objects, processes, properties of everyday experience really exist. At least that the very existence of these everyday objects, processes, and properties themselves doesn't point to the existence of some other kind of thing. I sadly can't stay any longer tonight. I gotta work tomorrow. It was nice to meet you, and I hope we bump into each other next time. Have fun. Everyone, good night. Thank you so much, Navir, and thank you for raiding again. I understand I have to be quite strict myself with work. Get a good rest. If you need to have a quick bite to eat, or maybe a cup of tea with some biscuits, and then get nice and cozy into bed, and get a good night's sleep, and wake up bright and bushy-tailed. Bye bye. Bye bye. Modern science has given us good reason to believe that these everyday objects, processes, and properties are constituted of the microphenomena described by physics and chemistry, and that they in turn constitute the macrophenomena described by astronomy and cosmology. So we are justified in holding that such micro and macro phenomena also exist, even though they are in general not directly observable. But science gives us no reason to believe that entities such as ghosts and poltergeists are real. The evidence for such things is weak and easily explicable in more mundane terms: hallucinations, delusions, tall tales, and the like. It also appears to give us no reason to believe in such things as souls or Cartesian immaterial substances. The reasonable conclusion would thus seem to be that there just are no such things. At the very least, materialists hold, we have every reason to act on the assumption that they are not, and to expect to be able to explain mental phenomena entirely in terms of the operation of physical processes and properties. But while such considerations may give the appearance that materialism represents, as dualism claims to do, nothing more than the drawing out of the unavoidable implications of something homespun, as dualism claims to do, Let me restart. This sounds like blasphemy. Won't the Pope go after you for speaking this knowledge? This certainly would be an aspect of what could be considered blasphemy. Although one might, the attempts to tie in Cartesian dualism with how it interacts with the material world could be considered blasphemy as well, in the sense that it sort of has a completely different conception of God to how I believe the Catholics view it. Although, of course, theology will differ, but I think they generally ascribe to a Thomistic view. Edward Fesser himself, actually, Fonzie, is a Thomistic philosopher. So he is this book is a little different from many philosophy of mind books in the sense that I think anyway, he does give a I believe in the light of the emperor. That's a good one. That's a good way to live. People are always like, oh, it's so bad, but no, if there's things like Tyranids and Necrons, I feel like humans should make giant super soldiers that can kill those things and protect people. Um, but what was I gonna say? Well, yeah, he definitely has an immaterialist bent. He is a theologian after all, and you can see that in his writings. He is somewhat polemical, but I think that he still gives a fair explanation to things. You do just have to consider that he generally will disagree with like something like the materialist or what have you. But while such considerations may give the appearance that materialism represents, as dualism claims to do, nothing more than the drawing out of the unavoidable implications of some homespun common sense, appearances are in this case deceiving, for scientific explanations have a way of not only explaining what we observe in every day, but also, to a very great extent, explaining it away. The table in front of you seems absolutely solid and impenetrable, as unlike a cloud as anything possibly could be. Yet, physics tells us that a cloud of sorts is exactly what it is, a cloud of unobservable particles, each occupying less space than exists between them, so that the apparently solid and impenetrable table is mostly empty space. We take our senses to give us as much certainty as is possible to have, and so we base our science on them. But science then informs us that our senses are largely wrong. The world revealed to us by sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. The world of tables, chairs, rocks, and trees is not the touchstone of reality. That honor goes to the strange world of unobservable entities postulated by physics. The world of molecules, atoms, electrons, and quarks. What becomes, then, of the commonsensical idea that the physical objects of everyday experience are the paradigms of reality, and if what the table really is something we don't directly observe, a cloud of particles, then why ought we be so suspicious of claims to the effect that certain other unobservable phenomena, souls or Cartesian immaterial substances, exist as well? Of course, the answer straight back to him would be, well, we can see these things, or we can monitor them, or at the very least, they seem to line up with our predictions as to how they might interact with each other. They are material still, while Cartesian souls or Cartesian immaterial substances are, by their very nature, immaterial. But I'm sure we'll get into it. As the example above illustrates, modern science also tends, in the view of many materialists, towards what is often called, reductionism. The table is something said to be reducible to, or in reality, nothing but, a collection of particles, with the appearance of it being something other than that dismissed as an illusion. The various properties of the table are also reduced. What solidity it does have is said to be nothing but the state its molecules happen to be in, when the field of force they generate repels those fields of force associated with other collections of particles, your hands or the book lying on the table. Similarly, the solidity of an ice cube is nothing but the state water molecules are in when at freezing point. But while the liquidity exhibited by water at higher temperatures is nothing but another state of its molecules. The temptation is to suppose that everything real, not just tables and ice cubes, but planets and galaxies, animals and human minds, must in some way be entirely reducible to the basic categories of physics. In some sense, a planet and a mind are nothing but different kinds of configurations of molecules or atoms. The sort of materialism that makes this boldly reductionist claim is often labeled physicalism, the idea that basic physics reveals to us what is truly real. The trouble is that there are things it is very hard to reduce down to the categories of physics in this strong sense, as most physicalists will themselves acknowledge. Cultural artifacts provide obvious examples. What makes a dollar bill the kind of currency it is seems to have little to do with the specific physical properties involved. A silver dollar is just as much a dollar as a paper one, and everything to do with social conventions, which are themselves hard to reduce to the properties of molecules in motion. Of course, all such cultural and social phenomena are ultimately mind dependent, and the mind itself is the most notorious, or for our purpose, relevant example of something it seems hard to reduce to the physical, for reasons sketched in Chapter 2, which we will be exploring in greater detail in the next few chapters. Moreover, physics is by no means a finished project, with the basic constitutes of the material universe and the laws governing them, all accounted for and neatly catalogued. The physics of Einstein and Heisenberg differs radically from that of Galileo and Newton, and the physics of the future may differ from both of them in radical ways. So, in which physics exactly is everything real supposed to be reducible? Physicalists often reply that it is the categories of a completed physics. Whatever body of theory future scientists will develop to solve all the problems current physics has yet to solve, it will do the job. But what if this future physics ends up having to postulate immaterial or non-physical properties to account for mental phenomena, as some dualists have argued it will, for reasons we will be exploring later? In that circumstance, physicalism would turn out to differ not at all from dualism, in which case it would not be a version of materialism at all. So essentially what he's saying is, if the materialist says, well, acknowledges that, well, physics hasn't explained everything, that we're still searching for things, but they believe that in the future it will completely solve everything, a completed physics, and we will know everything there is to know, let's say. Then the mind will be reducible to the physical properties. But if that completed physics has to conceive of non-material items to be complete, which would be quite hard for physics to do, I think, because physics by itself, being qua physics is the study of material things. But it might get to the point where it's just like there are inexplicable things, and such. You have to produce some sort of immaterial thing to explain things. But the physicalist can't really claim that, oh, the completed version will solve everything. Don't worry. He can't possibly know that. Such problems with physicalism have led other materialistically inclined philosophers to reject strict reduction as essential to their position, and to opt instead for the notion of supervenance. One thing supervenes on another, just in case there could not be a difference in the first. Okay, hang on, let me read this slower. One thing supervenes on another, just in case there could not be a difference in the first without there being a difference in the second. Materialism can, accordingly, be understood as the claim that all real objects, properties, and processes, including those of the mind, supervene on purely physical objects, properties, and processes. Nothing that happens, and in particular nothing mental, can happen at all unless something happens at the purely physical level, and ultimately at the level of the most fundamental entities postulated by physics. Unlike reductionism, this need not entail that the basic entities are, in some sense, all that really exist. Perhaps there is a sense in which tables, chairs, rocks, trees, bodies, brains, and even minds are every bit as real as fundamental physical particles. It entails only that everything that happens at the level of tables, rocks, mines, etc., ultimately happens only because something happens at the level of fundamental particles. Some philosophers who are committed to the idea of supervenience of the mental on the physical prefer to label naturalism to physicalism, the idea being that it isn't necessarily just the basic entities postulated by physics that constitute reality, but rather that the natural world of material phenomena in general, as distinguished from purported supernatural phenomena, for example, Cartesian substances, angels or gods. So I'll just read because I felt like that was read a little bit weird at the end. The idea, uh, it isn't necessarily just the basic entities postulated by physics that constitute reality, but rather the natural world of material phenomena in general. Of course, as it stands, this is all pretty vague, and one of the things that need to be clarified is what exactly is meant by the claim that there could not be a difference in the thing that supervenes without a difference in the thing supervened on. Is it that it is metaphysically impossible for a difference in the first to occur without a difference in the second, to use a terminology introduced in the last chapter? Or only that it is physically impossible? If the claim is understood in the first way, then many of the problems that afflict reductionism turn out also to afflict the suggestion that the mental supervenes on the physical. But if the claim is understood in the second way, then it isn't clear that the position that results genuinely counts as a form of materialism. For to claim that it is physically impossible for there to be a difference at the mental level without some difference of the physical level is just a claim that there can be no such difference given the way the actual world happens to work. It is not to claim that it is metaphysically impossible, that is, impossible in any possible world, not just in the actual one, and thus it is not to claim anything that rules out the dualist's basic idea that it is metaphysically possible for the mind to exist apart from the brain and body. The advocate of supervenience has, no less than the reductionist, the problem of giving a useful account of exactly what the basic entities of physics and of law, entities and laws of physics are, on which everything is claimed to supervene. The response that a completed physics will someday give the answer leaves open the possibility that the hypothetical physicists of the future will see fit to add a non-physical or immaterial phenomena to their list. Indeed, at least one self-described naturalist, David Chalmers, has predicted that this is precisely what the physics of the future will require, which is why he counts himself not only as a naturalist, but also as a dualist, thereby explicitly rejecting any essential link between naturalism and materialism. This last point should caution us to keep in mind that, as I indicated earlier, the terms naturalism, materialism, and physicalism, and I should now add the terms reductionism and supervenience, are used by philosophers in a bewildering variety of ways. For our purposes, it will suffice to reiterate that materialism essentially conveys a general commitment to the idea that physical reality is all the reality there is. Attempts to spell this basic idea out in greater detail tend to either take current physics, or something like it, as a touchstone of what counts as physical reality, and thus adopt the level or the label of physicalism, or instead to leave the concept of physical somewhat open-ended, and thus sometimes opt for the label naturalism. Predictably, the former sort of approach, being bolder and more determinate, is harder to defend, while the latter, though easier to defend, is often less determinate, and in some cases even less clearly materialistic in substance. Either way, the intuitive and common sense feel of materialism seems to last only as long as one keeps one's statement of it vague. Now we get on to a topic of cause and effect. So far, it might seem that the initial plausibility of materialism is so vitiated, is that how you pronounce that word, vitiated, by its indeterminacy. So far as it might seem that the initial plausibility of materialism is so vitiated by its indeterminacy that, while it is understandable how some might find it attractive, It is hard to see why it has become the mainstream position in the philosophy of mind, but we must not forget the interaction problem that, as we saw in the previous chapter, serves as the main objection to dualism and the chief philosophical motivation for materialism. Modern physics, as usually interpreted, teaches us that the material universe, to which dualists no less than the materialists take the human body to belong, is causally closed. Accordingly, nothing outside it, nothing non-physical, would seem capable of having any causal influence on what happens in that universe. But then the mind, if it were a Cartesian, non-physical substance, would be incapable of having any effect in the body, and yet it seems just obvious that it does. Excuse me. I need a small drink of water. I hope you're all enjoying the reading. At some points, if I'm going a little bit too quickly, or there's maybe something you want me to reread or do my best to explain, feel free to ask, and I'll probably, once I hit the end of a paragraph, I'll do my best. It won't be as good as an actual reading, but you know, I can try it. I can try at least. Where were we? Yes. But then the mind, if it were a Cartesian, non-physical substance, would be incapable of having any effect in the body, and yet it seems just obvious that it does. The materialist thus concludes, and surely not unreasonably, that if the mind interacts with the body, it can't be a Cartesian non-physical substance, but must be purely material or physical. This argument appeals to general facts about the nature of cause and effect relations in the physical world, but there are also quite specific facts about mind-body interaction that give further support to the materialist thesis. We know from everyday experience that changes in the body can have drastic effects on the mind. For instance, ingesting too much alcohol or suffering head trauma can radically impair one's ability to think clearly, or even to think at all. How could this be if the mind is as utterly distinct from the body and brain as Descartes held it to be? We also know from modern neuroscience that various specific mental functions, vision, hearing, the understanding of language, and so on, are associated with specific regions of the brain. Again, how likely would this be if the mind and brain were distinct things? Nor is neuroscience the only source of scientific objection to dualism. Modern biology tells us that human beings are the products of the same purely material process, evolution, which operates according to the same physical laws that govern the rest of the physical universe and, beginning in the purely material environment of the early history of the Earth, produced cows, houseflies, and bacteria, all of which seem obviously to be purely physical entities. So how can human beings, one outcome of this material process, be anything other than purely physical entities? The theory of relativity postulates that space and time form a single continuum, space-time, so that anything existing in time must also exist in space. Yet mental processes seem clearly to exist in time, as even Descartes acknowledged, in which case they would surely have to exist in space as well. How then could they fail to be physical or material processes? Man, if Parsecs was here, he could explain it in a deeper level. The appeal to the success of modern science in applying the mechanistic model of explanation to every other phenomenon in the universe is thus by no means the only arrow in a materialist quiver. Of both the general nature of physical causality and the specific details of the causal relations between mind and body also confer considerable plausibility on materialism. Given A, that the nature of cause and effect relations seem to require that the cause and effects of physical processes be themselves physical, B, that application of this idea has led to a general mechanistic model of the universe that has been enormously successful in explaining every other aspect of reality, and C, that we already know of certain specific causal links between the mind and the brain, the materialist can argue that the most reasonable conclusion is to suppose that the mind will, eventually, yield completely to a purely physical explanation. None of this, none of this exhibits by itself any fallacy in the arguments for dualism, such as the conceivability argument that we considered in the previous chapter. But some materialists have suggested that they can even present a conceivability argument of their own to counter that of the dualist. Imagine that in the far future. Imagine that in the far future, teleportation devices of the sort described in science fiction stories become possible. A person steps into a chamber here on Earth, and a supercomputer scans his brain or his or her body and brain, recording all the information gleaned, down to the last molecule. As a person's body is destroyed, this information is beamed to another chamber on Mars. An exactly similar body appears in the Martian chamber. So, Star Trek, essentially. This sort of scenario raises all sorts of interesting philosophical questions, such as whether the person who appears in the chamber on Mars is the same as the one who stepped into the chamber on Earth, or a mere duplicate. We will address such questions in Chapter 8. There's a lot of we'll talk a little bit more on this, or we'll get more in depth on this. I hope it piques your interests. What we want to take note of here is that it certainly seems conceivable, and thus metaphysically possible, that the person who appears in the Martian chamber will, whether or not she is identical to the original, exhibit exactly the same sort of behavior, and thus appear, no less than the original did, to have a mind. Well, what caused this person to exist was a storage and transmission of purely physical information. The information the computer scanned from the body and brain on Earth, and the use of that information to produce the person who appeared in the chamber on Mars. It would seem then that purely physical factors can generate a mind, in which case there is reason to believe that the mind is purely physical. This argument isn't exactly parallel to the dualist conceivability argument. That argument was intended to prove that the mind and brain are not identical, while this one is intended to support the claim that they are, or at least that the former supervenes on the latter. So that the mind supervenes on the brain or the physical. But conceivability arguments, if they prove anything, seem unable to prove positive claims about identity or supervenience. If you really can conceive of the mind existing apart from the body or brain, it is at least plausible that this would provide evidence that they are not identical. But if they were, how could you have one without the other? But to conceive of them existing together hardly proves that they are identical. After all, even the dualist supposes that they normally do exist together, and insists only that they nevertheless could, in principle, come apart. To imagine that all creatures with kidneys also have hearts doesn't prove that hearts and kidneys are the same type of organ. Similarly, to imagine minds existing wherever brains exist hardly demonstrates that the mind and brain are the same thing. So the materialist conceivability argument cannot, in the nature of the case, prove its conclusion. Nevertheless, it vividly illustrates and provides intuitive support for the conclusion materialist draws from the other considerations we've examined, that it seems at least possible that purely material processes could entirely account for the existence and nature of the mind. So I hope you enjoyed that little section. We're now going to get into, I believe he's going to start going through kind of the history of the philosophy of mind and the way it developed over time, which I really, I remember really enjoying this section. If I remember correctly, what it's about to go through. Of course, it goes further in, deeper into the chapters. How long is this chapter? We're actually making good time, I think. Behaviorism. Suppose we grant the strength of the materialist's case so far. As it stands, it supports that, at most, the claim that it is possible to give a purely physical account of the mind. But how is this possible to be made? But how is this possibility to be made actual? Can the materialist tell us specifically how entirely material processes in the body and brain produce all the rich mental phenomena we've described in the previous two chapters? Consciousness and thought, qualia and intentionality, and a robust sense of selfhood. Materialists have proposed several possible answers to this question, and the first to gain currency in the mid-20th century, the era in which materialism became the majority position within the philosophy of mind, was behaviorism, sometimes called philosophical behaviorism. to distinguish it from the methodological behaviorism associated with B.F. Skinner and other psychologists, which is a different though related idea. Behaviorism holds that to attribute a mind to something is to attribute to it a certain behavioral dispositions. To have where am I? Oh. To have the relevant dispositions is to have a mind. To experience pain, for example, is nothing more than to be disposed to exhibit such behaviors as moaning, wincing, crying, or saying ouch when one's body has been injured. To believe that it is raining outside is to be disposed to look for an umbrella, or put on galoshes whenever the weather forecast predicts rain. To feel fear is just to have a tendency to tremble or run away when in the presence of wild animals or knife-wielding strangers in dark alleyways. In general, to have any sort of mental state is just to have a propensity to produce certain behavioral outputs in response to given environmental inputs, and in particular in response to the effects of one's surroundings and in particular in response to the effects one's surroundings typically have on one's sensory organs. If behaviorism is true, then the explanation of mind is entirely material terms would be relatively easy. Simply a matter of showing that a purely physical system is capable of exhibiting the behavior associated with having a mind, something the human body obviously is capable of. Behaviorism isn't true, though. Now I love when authors do that, either in philosophical books or like anything, where they outline a position and then they just go, but it's incorrect, it's wrong. Behaviorism isn't true, though. It is sometimes said that no philosophical theory has been decisively refuted, although probably not by anyone familiar with this account of the mind, which appears not to have a single defender today. To be fair, it is clear that behaviorism has certain advantages. It makes the mind every bit as observable and accessible to scientific study as tables, chairs, rocks, and trees, and it can seem to reflect common sense in so much as the way we normally do have access to minds, or at least to the minds of other people, is precisely through their behavior. What you observe in observing someone's grief seems, strictly speaking, not to be something going on inside him or her, but rather just certain outward behaviors, sobbing, grimacing, and the like. Moreover, this fact, together with a certain theory of meaning, prominent in mid-20th century philosophy, the verifiability theory, which held that the meaning of a statement is its method of verification, seemed to make behaviorism almost unavoidable. If the only evidence you have for verifying claims about what other people are thinking is the behavior they exhibit, then to say that they are thinking must be nothing more than to say that they tend to exhibit certain behaviors. The verifiability theory has long since been abandoned, for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that, since it is hard to see how the theory itself could be verified, it is also hard to see how it could fail to imply its own meaningless. And with the verifiability theory goes the strongest argument that could possibly be given for behaviorism, in the absence of which its problems seem overwhelming. Where was I? Oh, yeah. For one thing, it is notoriously difficult to see how talk about minds could ever be completely reduced to talk about behavior. To say that to believe it is raining is just to be disposed to put on galoshes or look for an umbrella is obviously not quite the whole story. Someone who believes that it is raining will do these things only if he or she desires not to get wet. And a desire is itself a kind of mental state. So the behaviorist now has to analyze the desire not to get wet in terms of behavior in order to complete the analysis of the belief that it is raining in the same terms. But someone will desire not to get wet only if, for example, he or she also has a fear of catching a cold, and the fear that one will catch a cold is thus yet another mental state that must be analyzed in terms of behavior. a mental state that will in turn be present only if a further mental state, the belief that getting wet causes colds, is also present, and which will also have to be given a behaviorist analysis, and so on ad infinitum. There seems accordingly no way for the behaviorist ever to cash out all talk about mental states and processes in terms of nothing but behavior. More fundamentally, the theory leaves out the subjectivity that we saw in Chapter 2, which seems essential to the mind. Whether or not I know about other people's minds from behavior alone, that is surely not how I know my own. It's not as if I have to catch myself in a mirror screaming and crying before I can conclude, hey, look at that. I must be in pain. The subject of thoughts and experiences appears to have an access to them others do not. An access that does not rest on the observation of behavior. Indeed, given this subjectivity, behavior of any sort seems inessential to the mind. A good actor could convincingly exhibit all the behaviors associated with the most excruciating pain, yet not be in pain at all. An even better actor could really be suffering from excruciating pain and yet, to all appearances, be feeling nothing. The mental facts, the presence or lack of the qualia associated with pain, would in either case consist entirely of what was going on from the inner, subjective point of view of the actor, and be knowable only from that point of view, the behavior being irrelevant. The issue of causation is also relevant here, as it was in the discussion of dualism. One of the materialist objections to dualism is that it allegedly fails to account for the fact that mental states are the causes of behavior, but behaviorism also fails to take account of this. For if the mental states are identical to behavior, they can't be the causes of it. Your belief that it's raining doesn't cause you to get your umbrella, according to the behaviorist. It is your getting your umbrella. To take seriously the materialist commitment to the causal efficacy of the mental requires a rejection of behaviorism. Let me see, how many more pages do I have? 1, 2. So we're at 6. And this chapter finishes. There's a couple reading. So about 20 more pages, I think. I feel like we made a good dent today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah, I think I might read the next part, and then I'll see how long the next chapter. Not the next chapter, but you know what I think I'll do? I think I might, but then I'll just I might just read. I don't know. I'm gonna take a small break though. I might just chat a little bit. I've been enjoying this chapter. I think it's very interesting. I might excuse me. I might later on go reread it or look up some of those, like the verifiability theory thing, and just kind of get a broader understanding of that. Well, I hope everyone's been enjoying, whether you're just relaxing or even falling asleep or whatever. Coke Zero is good. It's a nice drink. I'm gonna be so happy when I get my new desk, because it has a little shelf that's a little bit off the main table. So I'm going to be able to put my mic on it, attach my mic to that shelf, and have the mic off the main table. And then my keyboard will be on an even lower table, part of the desk. So I feel like chances are me putting stuff on the table and me typing on my keyboard or clicking on stuff will not reverberate up through my mic stand, and then I won't be worried about there being like anytime I put something on, put something down, all you guys are hearing is a ding. It's a little bit frustrating, but I'm going to go take a little break for just a couple of minutes, and I think I might read a couple more pages and then maybe call it for the night. Maybe just chill out and chat. we back. I was squatting earlier today. I was in the gym doing leg day, and I often have music on, like many other people, and you'll have your thank you, Teal. Thank you very much, Teal Crystal Wolf. Oh, that's a cute catty look. Uh, but I had music on, and usually I'm listening to like, what would you say? Like rap music or like heavy music or what have you. Something that gets you pumped up for the gym, like rock or like heavy metal. But today, as I was listening to it, the song "Achy Breaky Heart" by Billy Ray Cyrus. That song came on, and I was like, it just came on. I often have my phone on autoplay. I think it's as well because I'm using another phone, like my work phone, because my battery was low on my other one. So it didn't have my usual tastes. It was kind of just playing random stuff. I think Daya sang it, so maybe I know it. It's like, oh god, what are the lyrics again? But don't tell my heart, my achy breaky heart. I just don't think he'd understand. And something like that. I imagine if Daya did sing it, I'd love to listen to it. That sounds like it would be so fun. I need to do a singing stream. I really want to. You can tell me, you can tell your aunt. No, it's like, go and tell your aunt. Tell her anything you want. I don't know, please or something. I don't even remember. It kind of sounds like one he'd sing though. It does, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It does. That or like Barbie Girl. I gotta see a Daya singing Barbie Girl, and he has the Ryan Gosling, Ken fan art of him. I love that fan art of Daya. It's so good. It's such a good fan art of Daya. Like just art, his banner on Twitter. It's so good. He sang it before, did he? I'm not surprised. I gotta hear him sing it. I kind of want to sing it as well. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can touch my hair. I'm gonna stop right there. 'Cause if I continue, I won't be say so. uh, I kind of pulled it out there at the end. If I continue, I won't be say so. I probably should have done that a little bit better, but it's like Eminem rhyming orange with door hinge by going orange door hinge. He's very smart. His brain, and people like that guy on YouTube who does freestyle raps, like their brains just work completely differently. They seem to just be able to make all these connections. But anyway, Billy Ray Cyrus came on, and I was like into it. It was like just completely different to what I usually listen to in the gym. And I'll go around like R&B and stuff. I'll listen to Irish music or like country music or like military marching songs. I'll listen to loads of stuff in the gym, but I never really listen to not country music. Sorry, like Irish trad music. But then Billy Ray Cyrus came on, and I was like half line dancing into the squat rack. I was grooving, man. But it was funny. I'm like that as well. Like a lot of people will just kind of like nod their head to their song, or they'll be like really serious, or they'll just be listening to it, and that's fine as well. But like I'm someone who, especially if it's a good song, I'll like get into it. I'll be like, I'll be either schmoovin' to some R&B, or I've been listening to a lot of it's like a Spanish song or something. I think it's a South American song. It's called Gasolina. I don't know what the lyrics are. I don't speak that language. Maybe Merle can help me or something if it is a Spanish song. But it has such a good beat. It has such a good beat. It's so good. But I'd be in there, and I'd have to be like actively stopping myself from like shaking my hips to that music, because it's that type of music. You'd shake your hips to it. But I think I will. Hmm, I think I'm going to. Look at that. Oh my god, I forgot to take off the text. I'm so dumb. I'm so dumb. Uh, yeah, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think we have the identity theory, which is another way of the materialist trying to explain what the mind is. I think that'll be a nice bit to end. It goes up to about page of it finished. We finish on the funny number. The funny number, guys. You know the funny number, right? It's the number when everyone sees it, they go, haha, look, it's that number. That's right, 72. They say make yourself laugh and you'll do well as a streamer. I don't think I will do well as a streamer, but I'll certainly make myself laugh. That was disappointing. It does actually end on 69. Oh, oh, oh no! Now I'm thinking of the SpongeBob episode where they're like, 27. Or no, is it 24? It's 24, isn't it? Yeah, they're like 24, and SpongeBob's like, "Hey Patrick, you know what's funnier than 24? What, SpongeBob? 25." I feel like for whatever reason, I feel like my mic is less sensitive with the interface. I'm gonna have to test it. Like I felt like it picks up my voice less. Not in terms of quality, but like if I'm usually if I laughed, it would still pick it up. I don't know how well it's picking up my laughing, or because on the OBS it seems to be like just a little bit quiet. Sorry, don't worry, Teal. It's fine. But yeah, we'll go until the funny number, the funny page number, and the sexo number. So, the identity theory. Inspired by the fact that mental states and processes seem clearly to be inner processes of some sort, and states and processes that cause outward behavior, materialists turned away from behavioralism in the 1950s and 60s and tended to favor instead the identity theory. If mental states and processes are the causes of behavior, but causes that are in some way inside the one exhibiting the behavior, and thus unobservable, then there seems to be an obvious candidate from the materialist's point of view for where exactly inner causes might be found: the brain. In this view, mental states and processes are just neurological states and processes. That is, they are the states and processes of the brain and the central nervous system. The mind, then, in this view, is identical to the brain. Here again we have a claim that seems simple and obvious, but which in reality is neither. The idea is that any given mental state, your thought about your grandmother, the sensation of pain in your lower back, your memory of your last trip to London, is exactly the same thing as the firing of such and such a clump of neurons in your brain. It is important to understand precisely what this means. It is not the claim that what happens in the mind is affected by what happens in the brain, that the feelings and sensations you have, your abilities to remember and think clearly, and so forth, depend on various neural structures and processes. No one denies this, certainly not the dualist, who insists, as we've seen, that the mind and brain interact with one another, even if he has a hard time explaining how. If that were all the identity theory were saying, it wouldn't be very interesting or controversial. The theory is rather not that your thought is caused by such and such neurons, but that it is such and such neurons firing. There is nothing more to the thought than that. Certain electrochemical signals are sent from one part of the brain to another, and that, and only that, is what constitutes a thought, a feeling or sensation. If you were able to peer inside someone's skull and somehow see the neurons firing, you would literally be looking at his or her thoughts. If that doesn't sound strange to you, you probably haven't understood the theory correctly. It is meant to sound strange, or at least it is not meant to sound obvious. Identity theorists took themselves to be putting forth a bold scientific hypothesis, not a common sense truism. The idea was that the identification of the mind with the brain ought to be accepted as the latest in a long series of scientific reductionist explanations. As noted earlier, everyday physical things like tables and chairs, though they seem to be utterly impenetrable objects with features like colour, taste, and odour, are really nothing but a swarm of colourless, odourless, tasteless microscopic particles. Physical objects have been reduced to collections of molecules and atoms by contemporary physics. Similarly, properties like heat, cold, liquidity, or luminance have been reduced to properties of aggregates of molecules or atoms, so water turns out to be nothing other than a particular chemical compound, a composite of hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. Heat, to use another example, is nothing but the motion of molecules, high mean molecular kinetic energy, to be slightly more precise. Such reductions reveal the true nature of everyday common sense phenomena and allow us to understand them and predict their behavior with greater precision than common sense makes possible. Reductions sometimes take place within science. The biological concept for the gene, for instance, turns out to be reducible to the more fundamental concept of DNA. This sort of example is called an intertheoretic reduction. Intertheoretic reduction. The reduction, that is, of the laws and ontology of one scientific theory to those of another. The ontology of a theory is just the list of the basic entities it postulates, such as the molecules, atoms, and subatomic particles of modern physics. The laws of the theory are the principles it says governs the activities of the entities in its ontology, such as the principles of quantum mechanics that are said to govern the basic entities postulated by physics. In the case of the intertheoretic reduction, the entities of the theory that get reduced turn out to be identical to, or nothing but, the entities spoken of by the reducing theory. Genes, to oversimplify, again, turn out to be reducible to, or are not in reality nothing but, aspects of DNA. There is accordingly a law-like connection between the entities of the reduced and reducing theories. In every case where such and such a gene is present, such and such an aspect of DNA is also present. The identity theory is sometimes formulated as a kind of intertheoretic reduction, or ordinary common sense way of talking about our minds and explaining our behaviors in terms of what is happening in our minds, speaking of beliefs, desires, for example, or of a person's behavior as being caused by a certain specific belief or desire, is claimed to be a quasi-scientific theory. It is, to be sure, not a sophisticated theory, stated with mathematical precision, created by an eccentric academic or graduate student, proffered in the lecture hall or tested in a laboratory, but it does, or so it is argued, have certain features of a scientific theory. It has a complex ontology. It talks not only of beliefs and desires, but also of hopes, fears, experiences, feelings, emotions, sensation, and it appeals to certain quasi-law-like generalizations, that a desire for a cheeseburger will tend to cause one to eat a cheeseburger, that a sensation of pain will tend to cause moaning and complaining, or that the belief that danger is near will tend to cause fleeing the scene. Since this theory is a theory about the mind, and since it is a theory that is held by the common people as much as by the educated, it is typically referred to by philosophers as folk psychology. The identity theory can thus be expressed as a hypothesis that folk psychology can be reduced to neuroscience, the science of the brain. Just as the theory that spoke of genes and the like turned out to be reducible to a theory that speaks instead of terms of DNA, so too should we reduce beliefs, desires, experiences, sensations, and emotions to brain states and processes. Identity theorists appeal, in defense of their theory, to the sort of considerations adduced earlier in favor of materialism in general, and to the dependence of various specific kinds of mental functions, language, vision, on various specific regions of the brain in particular. Excuse me, let me take a little drink of water. They acknowledge that, that their theory might seem counterintuitive. How, it might be asked, can subjective thoughts and sensation be nothing but electrochemical signals passing between nerve cells? But they also note that a table, for instance, does not seem like much, does not seem like much, does not seem much like a collection of particles, even though that is what it is. Common sense has often been challenged by the advance of science. If the identity theory, too, challenges common sense, they can by itself, that can by itself be no objection. There are, however, more serious problems with the identity theory, which materialists themselves have pointed out. The first has to do with a technical distinction made by philosophers between types and tokens. Consider the statement, "The cat is on the mat." How many words are in that sentence? The answer depends on whether we count the once or twice. If we count the as one word, the cat is on the mat, so we count the once, we are counting it by type. If we count it twice, since it appears twice in the sentence, we are counting its tokens. There are five different words in the sentence if we count word types, and 6 if we count word tokens. What is true of words is also true of mental states and brain states, and pretty much everything else for that matter. We can, for instance, distinguish between a general type of mental state. For example, the belief that it is raining that I had earlier this summer, the belief that it is raining that I had last April the 16th, the belief that it is raining that you had on May the 1st, and so on. The identity theory was originally intended as what might be called a type theory. It claimed that for each type of mental state, the belief that it is raining, the belief that it is sunny, the desire for a cheeseburger, the desire for a cookie, and so on, there could ultimately be matched one-to-one a specific type of brain state. Neuronal firing pattern of type A, neuronal firing pattern of type B, and so forth. The trouble is that it seems clear that there can't be such a neat matching, because there can't be such a thing as a law-like correlation between mental states and brain states. Recall a point made above in response to behaviorism. A person will typically desire not to get wet only if he or she has other mental states, such as a fear of catching a cold and a belief that getting wet tends to cause colds. Moreover, he or she will have those mental states only if he or she also believes that catching a cold will be unpleasant, and desires to avoid this unpleasantness. More than desiring to frolic in the rain, etc. Have you guys ever just, like, frolicked in the rain? It's very nice. It is very nice. I would highly recommend it. Especially when it's misty rain. You know, the type of rain where it's like, it's not raindrops, but it still soaks you. Now, of course, you want to do that when you're close to home and you can immediately hop into a shower and be nice and cozy and warm. But it's still kind of like, you know, I think what happens is, like, if you get caught in the rain, like really close to home, you'll be like, ah, damn it, and you'll run. You'll, like, hurry to get in shelter. But if you're walking somewhere, or, like, not if you're walking, like, obviously if you're going to, like, work or something, you won't be happy, but if you're just going for a stroll and you're, like, you know, you're not getting home for at least another, like, 10-20 minutes, and it starts lashing rain, or it gets really misty, you know you're going to be soaked. You're just like, you know, there's no point in worrying. There's no point in, you know, unless you're worried about a cold, of course, but, you know, you should have sufficient clothing. You know, you may as well enjoy the sensation of being in the rain, enjoy the kind of world as is. That's kind of how I look at it anyway. It's nice. Where were we? Any given mental state, then, is never had individually, but involves the having of other mental states as well. and it typically also involves there being rational connections between the mental states one has. It is because one believes that catching a cold is unpleasant and that getting wet tends to cause colds that one infers that one had better not get wet, and then draws the further inference that since going out in the rain, however pleasant, will cause getting wet, one had better not go out in the rain. So there are logical relations between mental states that partially determine precisely which mental states one will have, if one has any at all. But there seem just obviously to be no such relations between neurons firing in the brains. This is kind of the thing. If the brain and the mind are the same thing, and our thoughts are just our firings, or neural firings, the fact that we have logical connections between our mental states would seem to imply, at least, that there be some sort of logical connections between our neural firings. It would be absurd to say, indeed, it isn't clear what it could even mean to say that neural firing pattern of type A logically entails neuronal firing pattern of type B. Of course, you could say it mechanically does, that the firing of this one will cause the firing of this one, but it that doesn't seem to line up exactly with how our mind at least appears to us to function. Of course, it could be that that is just some sort of illusion that our mind plays on us. But again, if you're talking about the mind, you're talking about like our brain performing some sort of trick or illusion on us. You're kind of imagining a subject to be illusioned in the first place. That there could be a person who isn't illusioned in some fashion, but what would that person even be living like? Or that the secretion of luteinizing hormone is logically inconsistent with the firing of neurons 6092 through 8887. Neurons and hormone secretions have causal relations between them, but logical connections, the sort of relations between propositions like it's raining outside and it is wet outside, are not causal. There seems to be no way to match up sets of logically interrelated mental states with sets of merely causally interrelated brain states, and thus no way to reduce the mental to the physical. The best we can hope for is a kind of token identity theory. Particular mental state tokens are identical to particular brain state tokens. Your belief that it is raining is identical to the firing of some neurons or other, but there is no way to correlate mental states and brain state types in a law-like way. No way to describe the relationship between them in terms of a rigorous scientific theory. This sort of view is sometimes called anomalous monism. Anomalous monism. A label coined by Donald Davidson. Wow, that is quite the name. That is like, it's like the most basic name, like more basic than Jim Bob or like John Smith. Well, no, you can't get more basic than John Smith, but Donald Davidson. You have two first names. You have the parts of two surnames, MacDonald or McDonald, and son, like the end of any like Erickson or anything like that. Instead, you just have two first names, Donald and Davidson, David. The philosopher. He's probably like really, really, really smart and could just like absolutely school me. The philosopher most closely associated with it. Mental states are identical to physical events, the physical being all that ultimately exists, hence monism. But there is no way to formulate any scientific laws connecting the mental and the physical, hence the adjective anomalous. A related problem with the identity theory is that it seems possible that there could be creatures that have minds even though they lack brains. The mind, that is to say, seems multiply realizable, something that could be realized or exist in systems other than those composed of neurons. Divine beings and angels would be obvious examples, and even most atheists would admit that such beings are at least metaphysically possible, whether or not they exist in the actual world. Extraterrestrials would psychology characteristics utterly different from our own, when nothing remotely similar to human brains or nervous systems. An android with artificial brains composed of silicon, plastic, and copper wiring would also seem potential candidates for creatures that can be said to think and feel, despite lacking our neurological makeup. But then, if minds could possibly exist in the physical systems other than brains, how can they be identical to brains? And that leads then into the development of the thought of functionalism, which would be the next kind of topic to get into. But that's about, what is it, 1, 2, 3, that's another couple of pages. And I think here would be a good section to end on. Yeah, we're coming up to about 2 hours. And I tend to do that. I tend to kind of go for about 2 hours. Let me think. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. It's another 15 pages. That would take a while, wouldn't it? That would take like another hour, I imagine. I do think that would probably take a little bit of time. Oh, I'm sleepy. I was up pretty early today to get to work, so let me see if there's anyone to potentially raid. Nope, not that one. Clutch over here. Well, let's see who's on. There's Clunk, Renano, Dante, Sasabiu, Magic, Void. There's quite a few people on today. Noir, Gekuro, Hooter raid. Well, I think considering we've been doing kind of light ASMR, I might raid into someone who is also doing such. Ooh, yeah, I think, yeah, Noir Navre. He's a pretty nice guy. I watch his ASMR streams from time to time, and it's very nice. He got a new model a while back. It's nice. I like it. I remember his old one. It was also very cool. Thank you for streaming. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Teal. It's always nice to have someone in chat. Let me. Yeah, I think going for Noir would be good. But this was a great stream. I also about to go back to Battle Brothers after the recent one. I want to play some Battle Brothers. If I wake up early tomorrow and I get stuff done early, I'm thinking I might do like an early stream. Because if during the weekends I could get in maybe 2 streams, but I have to do some study, and then I have to go to the gym. Maybe do a little bit of reading myself, some personal reading. But I feel like that should be manageable. Like if I do, yeah, that should be. I might be able to get like a early stream and then do another late stream where I play games. Ooh, on Sunday though, I'm gonna have to be building in my desk. Hopefully that doesn't take too long. But I'm glad you enjoy having me on in the background, Lancelot. Always appreciate you coming along. Let me start the raid. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you all enjoyed the reading. I thought we got into some very interesting topics, and seeing kind of the development of materialism is very interesting to me. And I hope those of you who are just using me as background noise or as sleep aid, as if possible, enjoy it as well. I will see you guys probably soon. So I'm thinking I'll play some Battle Brothers again or some other game. You know, try and mix it up a little. I also still want to do a celebration karaoke stream at some point. Uh, I will do that. But thank you all. Grab Mila Market and Slongafoil.